You know, when we think about history, our minds usually jump to the big stuff, right? Huge battles, famous declarations. But sometimes, the most incredible stories are hiding in the little details, like in the ashes of a single forgotten disaster. Today, we're going to dig into a house fire from colonial Massachusetts that tells us so much about the incredible strength people can find when they're faced with absolute ruin. So, let's set the scene. We're in Sudbury, Massachusetts. The year is 1748. And it's a crisp autumn. I want you to picture it. Golden fields, tight-knit little communities where your life is basically run by the seasons, and a whole lot of hard work. But for one family, the Seavers, this wasn't just some scary thought. On one of those crisp autumn days in 1748, it became a terrifying, life-altering reality. All right, so let's meet the Seavers. You've got the father, Robert. He's a 46-year-old bricklayer, a hardworking guy who already knows what deep loss feels like. He'd lost a son in the war just 3 years before this. Back at home is his wife Eunice and their 6 children. It's just a totally normal day, full of the usual chores and routines of colonial life. And you have to understand, back then, families had to be almost completely self-sufficient. But at the same time, they completely depended on each other. Your neighbors weren't just the folks next door. They were your emergency services, your entire support system. And pretty much everything you owned, you had either built, grown, or made yourself.
And then, just like that, that ordinary day is completely shattered. It probably started with something small. A weird smell, maybe? Something burning that shouldn't be? Just a second of confusion, and then that gut-wrenching moment of realization.
In those first few seconds, Eunice has only one thought: the kids. Can you just imagine that frantic panic, trying to get all 6 of them, we're talking everyone from a baby to a teenager, out of that house and to safety? There's no 911 to call. The only alarm system is the sound of a child's voice running and screaming for help across the fields. And the community, they hear it and they come running. Men drop their plows, their tools, whatever they're doing, and form bucket brigades from the nearest well. But it's just not enough. A colonial home, it's basically a tinderbox. All wood, filled with things like dried herbs and linen. It just goes up with this terrifying speed. So all the family can do is stand there and just watch. Watch as their entire world is literally eaten by the flames. A whole lifetime of work, of memories, of feeling secure, it all just disappears into the smoke. And we're not just talking about a building, we're talking about the beds they slept on, the table they ate from. We're talking about Eunice's spinning wheel. That wasn't a hobby, that was a tool for their survival. The pewter plates, the cooking pots, even the family Bible, which was a really expensive and precious item back then. It's all these personal details that show you just how devastating this really was. Okay, but the biggest hit, the one that really hurt, it was the money. They lost what were called old tenor bills. I want you to think of this as their entire life savings in cash. There are no banks, no digital backups. When this paper money burns, it is gone. Period. Forever. The total was at least 18 pounds. Now that might not sound like a lot to us today, but back then, that was a fortune. It represented years of Robert's hard labor as a bricklayer, all the cash they had to their name. Without those notes, they were financially wiped out. And nothing says it better than Robert Seaver's own words from when he later had to ask for help. All the little substance I had in the world. Wow, you can just feel the crushing weight in that sentence, can't you? The complete and utter despair. So what now? They've got nothing. They're homeless, they're broke, and a brutal New England winter is right around the corner. For a proud, self-made guy like Robert, having to go to the government and ask for a handout, well, that had to have been an absolute last resort. And amidst all that destruction, one thing was left standing: the brick chimney. The one piece of the house that Robert, the bricklayer, had built with his own 2 hands was the one thing that couldn't burn. What a heartbreaking symbol of everything he'd lost. So he petitions the court, and what does the family get? 3 pounds and 15 shillings. It was something, sure, but it was barely a drop in the bucket compared to what they lost. It just shows you how truly desperate their situation was. But here's the thing. This is not the end of their story. Not by a long shot. In fact, this is where it really begins. Because this awful tragedy, this thing that could have so easily broken them for good, it actually becomes a turning point. It forces them to build a brand new future, literally from the ashes of their old life. Just think about the hits this family took. A son dies in the war. 3 years later, they lose everything they own in a fire. A lot of people would have just given up, but not Robert. Within just 2 years, he makes this incredibly bold move. He leaves Sudbury, buys land out on the frontier, and starts all over again.
And that, right there, is the real takeaway. The fire wasn't just some random event. It was a test. It took away all their stuff, but it couldn't touch their will to keep going. Their refusal to be beaten by loss, that's their real inheritance. A legacy not of money or property, but of sheer endurance.
In the end, this story from way back in 1748 isn't really just about the Seavers, is it? It's about all of us. It makes you ask yourself, how do the things that break us also end up remaking us? How do our deepest losses shape who we become?